Hello and welcome to the big picture. The civil aviation industry continues to go through a crisis even as one of the most talked about airline, the Kingfisher Airlines operations license is suspended. While the problems facing the Kingfisher has been seen as a combination of poor management as well as industry unfriendly policies, the larger problem facing the airline industry in general is also something which is causing a lot of concern. The latest figures of the drop in passenger traffic by over 12% in September compared to last year is also seen as a warning signal of an impending crisis which can hit all the airlines. Air India continues to struggle despite the huge bailout packages, even as new plans are being made to bifurcate its operations. The passengers are a harried lot as the fares are no more as friendly as it used to be. What are the reasons behind these problems? We will discuss all this today while looking at how the aviation industry can get out of its present crisis and also avert a bigger crisis in the future. To discuss this, I have with me K.Roy Paul, Retired Secretary, Civil Aviation Ministry, Dr.Sanat Kaul, Chairman, International Foundation for Aviation Development, Vinay Kumar, Associate Editor, The Hindu, and Subash Goyal, President of the Indian Association of Tour Operators. Welcome to all of you. Let me go to Mr. Roy Paul first. Mr. Paul, of course, there are two aspects to the present problem. One is what everybody is discussing about as far as the Kingfisher is concerned. Kingfisher, of course, is in a serious crisis and a serious mess. But there is a problem related to the entire civil aviation industry. Would you agree with that?
Yes, there is certainly a problem with civil aviation industry in general. And as you said, the Kingfisher's problems are different because Kingfisher's problems are, a lot of that is of their own making.
Right.
But there is a general problem of civil aviation industry because government has still not been able to come to recognize that civil aviation is a very, very important element of modern economy. And still it is being treated as something of a luxury which doesn't have to be given any kind of concession. That attitude has not changed.
Right.
That is the reason why there is a lot of problem with the civil aviation industry is facing.
Right. But when you talk of concessions, what are the kind of concessions do you think the aviation industry expects or is needed?
No, the most important thing is about the price of fuel. The price of fuel, we have been talking about it for God knows how many years, more than a decade certainly. It is not only the excise duty or the import duty, but two other elements which come in. One is the profit which the oil companies are making,
right,
which they try to kind of cross-subsidize for whatever cheaper price at which other things are supplied to other segments of society, plus the very, very high level of sales tax which most of the states are levying. Together, this is really killing. So that is the most important thing.
When you talk of don't you think that the ATF, the import of ATF being allowed, is it not solving the problem to some extent?
It won't make a major difference. For one thing, that it will certainly, if it is for the domestic airlines, nevertheless it is still an import. And the transaction of sale taking place within the country will, I think, attract sales tax. For international flights, yes, that will not be. But then for sales tax, I think will be attracted even if it is imported.
Okay.
And secondly, the oil, whoever imports, will have to have the infrastructure at the airport to supply.
Okay. Mr. Sanat Kaul, do you subscribe to what Mr. Paul says as the problems of the industry, or do you think there are any other problems which you think which needs immediate attention?
No, I generally agree with what Mr. Roy Paul is saying. What we actually need is some sort of a fiscal discipline between states in particular, where sales tax goes up to nearly 30% on ATF, and there are other charges. So the price of the ticket is not so important as the price of the various taxes and fees which are being put on a ticket.
Right.
Now that needs a little study, because question of sustainability of the aviation sector depends largely on it, and the growth also depends on it. If you put the price of ticket very high, then domestic market is likely to shrink. And is it a healthy thing for domestic market not to grow the way it was growing earlier?
Right.
So these things are very important. On the international market side, things are much better because their taxation is not there because of international treaties. So international flights, airlines also make money, and they are quite reasonable. But on domestic sector, there is a very serious issue.
Okay. Mr. Goyal, you understand how the passengers behave. There has been this report recently saying that there has been a more than 12% drop in passenger traffic, domestic passenger traffic. Is this because of Kingfisher's?
No.
How far has Kingfisher affected the civil aviation industry in general?
See, mainly, as rightly mentioned by Mr. Sanat Kaul, that if the airfares are high, then there will be shrinkage in the growth.
Right.
So what is happening, we've not had any new airline coming into the country or new players coming into the country. What has happened, the low-cost carriers like Air Deccan, like Sahara, all these have been absorbed by the bigger carriers.
Right.
Now,
And not so successfully.
not so successfully. Secondly, in every country, there has been a crisis as far as airlines are concerned. But in countries like America, we have a Chapter 11, where before going into bankruptcy, an airline can negotiate with the people they owe money to, or the organizations, and come up with a plan. And the government also gives a little thing, giving them an opportunity to come back. Now we don't have a long-term, transparent aviation policy. It has always been an ad hocism based on the civil aviation minister or the secretary of civil aviation at that particular time. So now with FDI coming in,
Right.
announcement of FDI alone is not enough.
Right.
We need to look at the ATF, because this is, the direct operating cost of an airline. The aviation turbine fuel is something like 30 to 40% of the direct operating cost.
Of the cost.
Of the airline. So within the country, so the result is, from the tourism point of view, today outbound tourism is 12.5 million and inbound is only less than 6 million.
Really?
So reason is, it is cheaper for an Indian
To travel
corporate
abroad.
to go and set up a conference in Bangkok or Sri Lanka or Malaysia or Singapore than to do it in Cochin or to do it anywhere in India.
Anywhere in India.
So what is happening, that
And this you think is essentially because
no,
of the
this
pricing
no,
of
because there is no coordination. We have a stupid policy that we are trying to create jobs in neighboring countries rather than creating jobs in our own country. Because wherever conferences are held, tourists are held, hotels come up, then hotels
Absolutely.
lead, it has a multiplier effect on the
Absolutely,
economy.
absolutely. Yes.
So I think it is high time this Kingfisher crisis is a wake-up call, right? We have to wake up, and we have to have, because the economy of the country and tourism, the whole development of the country, the future of the country depends on these two things.
Okay. Vinay, Mr. Roy Paul made a very interesting observation. He said that we still continue, in this country, we still continue to see airline industry as a luxury industry. Is this how you see the in the government quarters? Is this mindset still does this mindset still continue?
I would say to certain extent, it's still we are still evolving,
Right.
and like Mr. Goyal was pointing out, there is no
Policy.
And as Mr. Roy Paul himself, he was a former civil aviation secretary. He rightly pointed out that there came a time when we saw liberalization,
Right.
era of liberalization dawning upon aviation sector, and post 93, a lot of private airlines came. Many fell by the side, like Damania fell, Modi Luft fell, East West fell, and some were acquired. Merger, acquisition and merger took place of Sahara by Jet, then Air Deccan by Kingfisher, in their eagerness to expand and to pump more capacity without any rational application of their mind, and without having any rational strategy towards expansion. And as everyone has pointed out, and it remains a fact that ATF and the tax component there ranging from 4% to nearly 30%.
You mean in the States?
In the States. That
The
is
sales
also
tax-
a
the
very
sales tax.
dampening factor.
Right.
So hardly 2 to 3%, not even 2 to 3% of our total population takes to air travel. So and we have a country as big as the size of Europe.
Right.
If you take Uttar Pradesh alone, it makes up for entire Europe, and you have smaller airports in European cities, in other smaller countries. In Kerala also, if you see, in a stretch of 500 miles, we have about 3 airports.
Right.
So now the government had started woken up. 35 non-metro airports were being developed. So that the stress has to be on development of infrastructure side by side, development of airports, and the facilities, as Mr. Roy Paul was pointing out, to airlines to grow in a competitive atmosphere. And naturally, on everyone's lips is the question of Air India.
Air India.
Taxpayers' money is being pumped by the government. How long? Civil Aviation Minister Mr. Ajit Singh has pointed out that government cannot go on forever pumping money, taxpayers' money in reviving Air India. It has to evolve itself. And so the new business strategy is being pumped in. So, and then as Kingfisher has also, experience has shown us, and the previous experience of East West Airlines, Damania, Modi Luft, they have also, recently MDLR, a small airlines, it also fell by the side, and the casualty was there. So employees suffer, and the civil aviation and tourism, they have to grow hand in hand. Together there has to be an integrated approach.
Absolutely. Mr. Paul, everybody talks about the problems. We all have been discussing the problems of the airlines. There have been any number of studies and reports which are coming up. But where is the problem? Is it at the government level that there is no proper integration of what the problem is and a proper thought out strategy? Where does the problem lie in finding solutions to this?
See, as we have been so far talking, the cost of flying is what is the inhibiting factor in the expansion of the aviation industry. In other words, more people will travel if the flight become affordable.
Absolutely.
And that the only part of the government which can help in this matter is the finance ministry.
Right.
They have to accept that and recognize and realize that this is an important thing to have easy mobility within the country for a dynamic growth of a modern economy. And until that is done, the heavy burden of taxes and duties will make the prices unaffordable for people.
Mr. Roy, all of you have been talking about the high taxes on aviation fuel. Ranging from 4% to 30%, as Vinay was pointing out. There has been a demand to make it a uniform 4%, but obviously the state governments are involved. The state governments are not really prepared to give up this revenue from this. Is that a serious problem?
It is a very, very serious problem. No government, I remember that when Chandrababu Naidu was Chief Minister in Andhra, he had brought it down to 4%. Right. And I think for some time, even in Kerala, it had been brought down to 4%. But they all went back because nobody else is willing to do that.
Absolutely.
Not even Delhi or Bombay.
Okay. We need to go into a short break now. Please keep watching. We'll be back soon and continue this very interesting discussion. Welcome back. We are discussing the crisis facing the aviation industry in this country. Let me go to Mr. Sanat Kaul. Mr. Sanat Kaul, we have discussed these problems of the aviation fuel and how it is causing all this crisis to a great extent. But there is also the problem of the Airport Authority of India, the landing charges, the user development fees. All these are also, don't you think, causing this crisis?
Yes, of course. Well, let me start with the center state issues of sales tax. It is the big states like Delhi and Maharashtra which are putting high taxes. In case of Maharashtra, in fact, it is Mumbai and Pune which have high and not so high in other smaller towns of Maharashtra. So they are actually using their monopoly position to put very high taxes. On the other side is also these charges for security are very high. Now, is security only to be paid for by the airlines themselves or by the passengers? So that is another issue which is to be considered. Regarding the airports, well, these are the two main airports of Delhi and Mumbai which are charging very high user development fees.
Right.
And recently the minister has announced that this will be stopped. But what he has done is he's allowed Airport Authority to put more equity into the two Delhi and Mumbai.
Right.
Now that's a very healthy sign. But the concession agreement initially said that while they will maintain, government will maintain a 26% equity in the new joint ventures in Delhi and Mumbai, they will not put in more than 500 crores. So if you restrict to 500 crores the government equity, then obviously the private equity cannot go up also. So this order which has been issued, which may violate the original concession agreement, is a healthy thing. With more equity coming in, the dependence on all these various charges of advance of user development fee and other fees will not be necessary.
Okay. Vinay?
So these are some of my comments on
Okay.
how to sort out these issues.
Okay.
And some things are happening which will bring in some sort of a field which is more which will help the airline industry, the aviation industry.
Okay, Mr. Kaul. Okay, Vinay, he's talking of bringing in more equity, government, but there is a big problem with the Delhi airport. There's CAG, which nobody is discussing, the CAG report and the way the whole thing has been handled. That is the next crisis in the making.
Yeah, that is how the dial has handled its affairs and how CAG has been very critical about the entire affair, and the GMR group was, rushed to media to defend its actions and what steps it had taken and what was the agreement, concessionaire agreement, and how, it's been, right from the beginning, if you see, there has been a talk of setting up another airport at Jewar in UP, which is less than 150 kilometers. It started from there. Then the findings of CAG, how they have, on purchase of land, how compensation was paid, and how they have made money. All these, it's a different issue altogether. But
is that the next crisis in the making? As far as once that hits the CAG report has come out, but the media has somehow been has not taken up this issue because of so many other issues it is handling. So, but is that the next crisis in the making as far as the aviation industry is concerned?
Yeah, it could be how this, because this Delhi, Hyderabad, and Bangalore are the airports which were set up in PPP mode,
right?
Public-private partnership.
So
mode.
the question the questions are being raised over this PPP mode itself.
Yeah, but right now, if you see, it is a welcome change as far as growth and development of infrastructure is concerned.
Right.
If this experiment goes awry, if it does not meet the requirements and aspirations of the people and the government and the stakeholders, then I'm afraid that it's a next crisis in the making.
Right.
And you have a user development fee in Hyderabad as well. You have in Delhi also, and Mumbai also, and Airport Authority of India, which is developing Calcutta and Chennai. There, Mr. Ajit Singh has already issued the order that there will not be any UDF imposed on these two airports.
Right.
That is what the left parties have been, demanding, that if AI is capable of doing these things, then why go in for dramatic and very drastic restructuring of airports? It was not greenfield airports is another story altogether.
Absolutely.
Like we have seen in Hyderabad and we have seen in Bangalore.
And also Kochi, I think.
And also Kochi. Kochi was a successful experiment.
Absolutely.
And it's been running successfully. It was a good model, but how allegations and charges have surfaced in Dial, and the same company has built Hyderabad airport also. And what Mr. Ajit Singh has done, to my mind, is to make it, more accessible to the passengers if they are not paying UDF of 1750 or 1850 per international departure, and another 758, around in that range for domestic passengers. So it makes all the more accessible and affordable for the passengers to fly. But airport development is another issue.
It's a big issue.
Yeah.
Mr. Paul, lot of discussion on
Yes.
creating a level playing field. One of the things which is being discussed is that a level playing field needs to be established, but as long as Air India is there and as long as government continues to support Air India, that level playing field which the private stakeholders, private airlines expect is not going to happen. On the other hand, we were just discussing about this, the airports, development of airports. Where is the level playing field? Do you think there is any hope or scope for creating a level playing field at all?
Before I come to the level playing field business,
Yes.
let me say that we must separate the issue of any kind of crisis or problems being faced by the civil aviation sector in general
Yes.
from the alleged corruption in the airport development by private sector or
The
acquisition
PPP,
of aircraft and all
the-
that kind of things,
the
or
question-
and also bad management of airlines. These are the different things.
Okay.
And as far as the
But they all add up- they
aviation
all add up to
sector
the
is
crisis.
concerned, yes, it should be.
They all add up to the crisis, Mr.
Well,
Paul?
yes, in a way.
Yeah.
They add up to the crisis in the sense that when we look at it, Air India is having so much a problem, Kingfisher is having so much a problem, and though these have been created by the bad management, and I would not like to go use more stronger language about why the Air India has come to this pass, but
Right.
certainly it is because of bad management.
Okay. Okay.
And as far as level playing field is concerned,
Yes.
yes, it's a moot question whether in modern day, when we recognize that aviation sector need not be monopoly of public sector,
Right.
should there be a public sector at all? There are many countries who don't have government-owned national carriers.
Right.
Does it mean that they are less patriotic about their country's name and the flag bearers and all that? It's not so. The world has changed. You don't
Obviously.
necessarily have to have a government-owned airline as a national carrier.
Okay. Mr. Goyal, should we have a national carrier at all is one of the questions which Paul is raising, and many people keep raising this all the time. But does Air India bring some kind of relief to the passengers?
No, I'm just putting the things in the correct perspective.
Okay.
First is the PPP thing which you talked about.
Right.
I think it is very important because we used to feel ashamed and when we entered our airports.
Absolutely.
Today we have a world-class airport.
Right.
Now, the reason the CAG report, we are a country where we try to, diagnose things after the event. We have to make things crystal clear before the event. That is why I'm saying that we don't have a long-term aviation policy. Whereby
And
things,
that is what is
whereby
causing
things
all
are
this problem.
transparent. Now, what happens is decisions are taken, an airport is built, and now you're trying to, find fault.
Find fault.
Secondly, when you reduce the passenger fee, which is good, I think I compliment the minister, but at the same time, we should not allow the airport to increase the charges for airlines.
That is what is happening.
Because
Parking,
if the-
landing
no,
charges.
So if the landing charges and all go up, then again, the aviation operation becomes difficult.
Ultimately, the passenger will have to be the
Not only
burden.
that, more airlines which are wanting to come to India or to Delhi, when they will work out their break-even analysis, they will say, no, it's not a profitable route.
Right.
So ultimately, You see, we have to put our act together. We have to think and how we will make aviation grow.
Okay.
A airline like Kingfisher, this should not be allowed for any other airline. And secondly, whatever punishment you want to give to the individual, whether it's Vijay Mallya or anyone, but the institution, just like we did with Satyam, you see,
That
the
needs to be-
institution
Okay.
should be revived.
Revived, okay.
Revived because the prestige of India
Absolutely.
is at stake.
Mr. Kaul, last words to you. Do you think that the PPP model is something which we need to pursue with, or do you think there is some need for some change? And also a quick word about this level playing field business.
Okay, on the PPP issue, I think yes, we need to pursue it very much because the future of government funding may dry up, and we need a lot of good airports. However, the PPP concession model needs to be modified and looked into what went wrong, what happened, and so on.
Okay.
On the level playing field, yes, we were about to privatize Air India in 2001. And it was more or less true, but the present government has said we will not privatize Air India, we will make it work. There is no need for a government airline, as you had said. US never had a government airline, it was Europeans who had, and they've also started selling it, and there is absolutely no need to have a public sector
Okay,
airline.
Mr. Kaul.
So
Vinay.
that's one thing, and of course Kingfisher is a different story.
Okay, Vinay, very quick last words to you. Do you see the Indian government authorities heeding to any of these words about winding up Air India and making it and privatizing it at all?
I don't see it
We
happening
don't see that
in the near
happening.
future.
So we have to find solutions to this in the context of Air India continuing to be a public carrier, right?
Yeah, but now that the stage has come when questions are being raised about taxpayers' money being pumped into bad management of an airline, which is national carrier. There is a lot of talk about social responsibilities. You know, Air India flies to northeast and the other routes. All this has to be worked out, as Mr. Goyal was pointing out, to evolve a long-term civil aviation policy.
A long-term civil aviation, we completely run out of time, Mr. Goyal. A long-term civil aviation policy which has been talked about for years, but it is yet to see the light of the day. Hopefully, in a crisis which we are seeing in the industry, the government and authorities will wake up and come out with a transparent policy, as all my panelists today were talking about. Thanks to all my guests, Mr. Roy Paul, Mr. Kaul, and Subash Goyal and Vinay Kumar. Thanks for watching. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue on the big picture same time tomorrow.